Welcome to the DJ Kenny Parker Show. We do this every Tuesday, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And today I made a mistake and didn't set the time right for the alerts. I had the time set at 9 o'clock for some reason. I fixed it, I think, on YouTube just about 2 minutes ago. And that's the alert. I fixed it like 2 minutes ago. So 8 o'clock, our normal time. What's good, everybody? Spook Realm 4Q. You are once again, as usual, first in the building. Spook Realm always makes the announcement. Assault the like button, please. It helps the algorithm. Please, please, please hit the like button and buy the book. My brother's name is Kenny. The link is in the description below. Okay. And Spook Realm also comes with this reminder that we were talking about, I think, on Friday, and I'm getting a little pushback on this, but I'm standing my ground. And I was talking about groundbreaking albums and moments that changed the course of hip-hop history, seismic shifts. And I named a few albums that I think, and I really thought about this, there's about 15 moments to me in hip-hop that really changed the course. And I said that Enter the 36 Chambers, Wu-Tang was not one of those moments. I think it's one of the greatest albums ever in hip-hop history, but I don't think Wu-Tang Clan changed the game. And my question was, how? The people that say Wu-Tang changed the game, how? How was rap different after 1993 when Wu-Tang Clan dropped? My argument is it didn't. Gregory Nettis, what up? Says, yo, Kenny, the SP1200 show has been excellent. You should do this more often from someone who listens to instruments. I approve. Thank you so much, and I appreciate that you approve. Yes, we've been doing some SP1200 beats premieres. I've been playing some beats, the ones that work. And the rules were that the discs had to be at least 25 years old. And I had no idea what was going to be on them. We went through a bunch of them. We found maybe 10 that worked. And everybody's, come with opinions on what the ones they like and, ones they thought were best. We found a few gems in there. And I really appreciate you guys' feedback. And I'm probably in the upcoming episodes gonna do some more of those, just throwing some beats and see what's up. For those that did not get a chance to check it out, a couple of lives back. We did one on Friday that just passed. That's part 2. And I think the week before Tuesday, we did part 1. So thank you, Gregory Nettis. And I'm behind, but I'm going to try to catch up. Mike Rocks 25, what up? Abel Valdez, what up? Abel Valdez says, peace, Kenny. Do you remember the episode of In Living Color when Biz played a student and Jim Carrey is his guidance counselor? Hilarious. I tell you a quick story about that. I don't remember that specific episode, but I remember chilling with Biz, just me and him riding around, and he said, I'm going to be on In Living Color tonight. And I'm like, word. Now, Biz is known for telling tall tales sometimes. And he mixes in the truth sometimes with some tall tales. So he was like, yo, I'm going to be on In Living Color tonight. I'm going to be Wanda's sister. I think it was Wanda's sister. And I'm like, yeah, right, Biz. Come on, man. He said, I'm telling you. Me and Biz went to Biz's crib, sat down on the couch, clicked on In Living Color. I just thought about the story just now when you brought it up. And In Living Color comes on, and sure enough, we watching the premiere, and Biz comes out as Wanda's sister. Shout out to Jamie Foxx, whom I've never met. But Biz was actually on the show. I did not believe him And yes, he was on there. So to answer your question, rest in peace to my brethren, Biz. And I just remembered that when you told me that, but I don't remember that specific episode, but I remember Biz being on the show, and we watched the premiere of him on there together. Spook Ram 4Q says the overall question, y'all, is how Wu-Tang changed rap in like a manner as Run DMC and De La Soul, and that is my question. And hint, hint, I might be having a special guest next week that we're going to dive into this game-changing opinion that I have, because this is one of the people who were part of one of the albums that I think changed the game. I don't have the confirmation yet, but we are close, and I'm shooting for next week. Not going to say who it is yet until we talk, but hopefully next week or very soon, this special guest will be on, and we're going to talk all about it. This is going to be great. Spook Ram says, is anyone else seeing that KP isn't starting the show till 9 o'clock? That was a mistake by me. And I hope people jumped on. I hope I didn't throw anybody off. And you're going to come on at 9 o'clock and be late. My apologies. Mike Rocks 25 says, yeah, Shorty and me just had a quick debate and we agreed. There was no shift with Wu-Tang and rap. We got classics up on classics with them as a group and individual, yet no shift occurred by them. And that's just my argument. People think I'm disrespecting Wu-Tang. I would never in a million years disrespect the Wu-Tang Clan. Not personally, not professionally, none. I'm just talking about in the history of rap. This is just my opinion that they did not change the game, but they were absolutely phenomenal. Still are. John Walker, what up? Charles 13X, what up? I'm trying to move quick. John Walker says, KP, can you talk about the criminal-minded practice sessions from the Frozen Files? It popped up on my feed Saturday. Yes. I got invited to do the Frozen Files radio show in 2013, I believe. And it's, if people don't know, it's outside. It's in a storefront. Well, it used to be in a storefront in the village. So there's a crew there. Shout out to Mateo from The Source. And my other man, I can't remember his name that was running. I'm sorry, I forgot your name. I shout out to my other man, DJ Mateo, who brought me down there. So it's a Mateo from The Source and DJ Mateo. Two Mateos was there. And it was a storefront. So people are walking past in New York City, people walking past, and you're in there DJing. So they asked me to come down and do a set. So I was like, well, what can I play a little different than, you know, any exclusives? Of course, I talk all the time about how I have BDP practice tapes, some which are what me and Chris did together. He would come to my house. We'd hook up the SP1200, find some beats, and work out some routines. Sometimes it was routines for the show. Sometimes it's stuff that became songs. So I had some of those on cassette, which I digitized. And I also had some cassettes that I got from KRS from 1986. Him and Scott LaRock practicing, him and Red Alert practicing. And I wanted to do a whole album compiling all of the practice tapes and just call it a BDP practice tapes and just put it out one day. I'm going to do that. And so when I went on Frozen Files, I played some of the exclusives that I had. I played pieces of the whole thing. And it was quite a stir. A lot of people copied it. They put it up on SoundCloud. They put it on different things. It did really well. That was 2013. So if some of y'all look up Criminal Minded Practice Sessions, you will hear some of the old stuff, especially some stuff that he did with Scott that ended up becoming Criminal Minded. This is rhymes before the Criminal Minded was even recorded. And you'll see how some of it, he rhymed, some of the rhymes was a little different. It's very interesting. I have possession of those tapes. So yeah, to answer your question, and I'm falling behind. Spook Rem says, Wu-Tang, in my opinion, is the finale of a great era, but not the beginning of a new era. I agree. Let's see. Scrolling down. I'm trying to see. Green Lion Entertainment, what up? Papa Sincere, what up? Terrell McMillan, what's good? I'm trying to move quick. Ilroy says, check the Friday rewind. That Common beat was fire. Thank you so much. I played a beat that I had played a beat tape for Common back in 96 for I don't know what album that was upcoming that he must have made in 97. But I played him some beats in 96 and he liked that particular track. And we were supposed to work on it, but for some reason it never came to fruition. So, but I played it Friday. So if y'all guys missed it, go back and check it out. Ed Olivier, what's up? Terrence Hill says, what's good, everyone? Tuesday Community, Rewind Crew. DJ Kenny Parker, you still taking Luka over Brunson? Absolutely. I think Brunson is running away with it. Dallas got the #1 pick because of that trade. But I don't think it was because of that trade. Because Dallas made the playoffs. I think it was because of their record. Is that a deal? Oh, wait, did they get a pick because of that trade? I'm not sure how that worked. Maybe they did get that pick because of that trade. That would be very interesting. Luka Doncic's track record over the past 5 years is unmatched by most. Brunson had an incredible playoffs last year. And this year he's looking like old school Bernard King on the Knicks with the numbers he's putting up in the playoffs and his fourth quarter heroics. But even this year, and I think Luka was a little bit down this year from where he was just last year when he took his team to the finals. But even this year in the series that they lost, Luka averaged 37 and 6, 30 points, 7 rebounds, 6 assists, something like that. And that's considered down for Luka. Like, man, Luka was really off. He only averaged 37 and 6. Brunson, I don't know what, I'm not sure if his average is this year, but his average in the regular season wasn't over Luka. I think Luka was 4th in the league. There's no stat where Brunson is over Luka except his fourth quarter heroics. Now, I think Brunson is absolutely fantastic. And he is unguardable in the fourth quarter. And I don't understand how teams are not scheming better to try to get the ball out of his hands in the fourth quarter. Teams are just letting him go to work and cook. I don't understand that. But I still think Luka is over Brunson. Brunson is playing great right now, but I still think Luka is over Brunson. And I think if Luka was on this team with the players they have around, I think the Knicks are better than the Lakers. I think the Knicks have a better team than the Lakers. And I think if you put Luka on this team with Anthony Towns and Josh and OG and those guys, I think that Knicks team would be very, very a big problem. They're a problem now. And by the way, also prayers up to Jason Tatum. I mean, I'm a Knicks fan. I want the Knicks to win, but I don't want to see anybody get hurt. And I just read that he had Achilles surgery today, which means he went to the hospital last night and had surgery in the morning. Like, it was that serious. Like, he didn't even go home. He probably had his surgery. They probably took his basketball gear off and changed it to a hospital gown. So he's torn his Achilles, which is probably at least a year, We're not going to see him until the beginning of the 2026 season, I'd imagine. 26, 27. So prayers out to him and big up to the Knicks. But yes, I still take Luka over Brunson. Yes. Rod Justice says, DJ Kenny Park, I agree with you, Kenny. How did Wu-Tang change anything? Why do we think everyone changed hip hop? That's just my argument. I mean, people's fans take things so personally, and I'm not personally disrespecting Wu-Tang. And I would love to hear the other argument on the other side. Matter of fact, Gregory Netta says Wu-Tang Clan 36 Chambers changes the rap game more than any De La Soul album. How? I'd like to hear that. Antoine Ware says, what up, Kenny? One could argue that only Built for Cuban Links did more for hip-hop than Enter the 36 Chambers. What say you? I can't put any Wu-Tang album over 36 Chambers, although I'm going to put absolute love. Only Built for Cuban Links. Matter of fact, when it first came out, I didn't really get a chance to listen to it all the way. And I'm going to shout out my man Jetta. He was telling me, yo, there's this song called Incarcerated Scarfaces on there. You got to listen to it. And I was like, yeah, I'll get around to it when I get a chance. We had a show and we went away I forgot where we were. And I was in the hotel and I cut on a clock radio. They had a clock radio in the hotel. And I was just fumbling around on the radio to find if there was a mix show. It had to be like 8 or 9 o'clock. We didn't go on to maybe 12. And I found some mix show. Probably was like Virginia. It was down south, Virginia or North Carolina. So I'm listening to the local mix show, and Incarcerated Scarfaces came on this little clock radio. Yeah. And it was knocking on a clock radio. And I listened to the chef murder that track. And I was like, yo, I got to go back and listen to the whole album, which I did. And that's probably right there with 36 Chambers as my favorite, but I put 36 Chambers over every other Wu-Tang album. That is the Enter the Wu-Tang. And that's one of the greatest albums of all time. I think that's a top 10 hip hop album all time for quality. CMC's Techniques in Class, what up? Green Lion says 36 Chambers dropped the same year Midnight Marauders came out. Was it on the same day? And it dropped when Snoop dropped too. Doggy Style dropped. All of those albums dropped around that same time. Return of the Boom Bap too. A lot dropped. Enter the Stage, Black Moon. 93 was crazy. Jason Wall says, I saw a new interview with Fat Joe where he said at the Prodigy funeral, someone stood up and said, fuck KRS, Queensbridge ain't over. That's hilarious. That is mad funny. Gregory Netta says, I remember Biz Markie Jamie Foxx episode in Living Color. Wanda is hilarious. Word up, son. Yeah, I watched that live. Let's see. Live with Deacon Strange says Wu-Tang changed hip-hop game in terms of clothing and merchandise. I don't even know about that because Wu wear was hot, but Naughty had gear before Wu-Tang. Naughty gear was out early, like 91, 92. Matter of fact, they had a whole store in Jersey after a while. I mean, I don't know if the Wu clothing was hot, but I think Sean John did more to change urban clothing. I think Puff Daddy did more to change urban clothing than Wu-Wear did. Wu-Wear had shirts. I don't know what they had. They had some shirts. I remember shirts. I don't know how many other things they had, but I consider that a small element of Wu-Tang. I don't know if it changed the game. To me, it would be like before that, there were no clothing lines, hardly any merchandising, and then Wu-Tang Clan came out, and then the merchandising game just became everybody was copying Wu. I don't really look at it like that. I look at Wu-Tang as just another act that had clothing. To me, I could be wrong. KB Play, thank you so much for your contribution to the channel. Peace, KP. 3 Feet High and even Beastie Boys' Paul's Technique were innovative in sampling. 3 Feet High is one of the most innovative sampling albums since sampling had started. In sampling as we know it, shout out to Marley Marl, really started in like 86. And the first rap album that was done with the majority of the music comprised of sampling was Criminal Minded, BDP. And that was in 87. But what De La Soul did in 89, you could see the difference in a lot of music after that. But I'm going to get into more of that another time. Benny Doyle says, I want to hear that Scott LaRock stuff. Well, a piece of it is online. Some of it is online. Scott LaRock cutting and KRS rapping what would become Criminal Minded. Big Remo, what's up? Let's see. Swap. I don't want to mess up anything. Soft Arms says, Ghost with his Clarks. RZA's beats change the ears of producers. Cats was trying to sound like Meth, all his features, the whole posse aspect of it. I don't know. I mean, mad people was rocking Clarks before Ghostface. As a matter of fact, Slick Rick was rocking, well, he had Bally's. KRS-One has on Clarks on the cover of Ghetto Music, the blueprint of hip hop. BDP, we was rocking Clarks in 89. Now, I'm not saying, for me to say a game changer, you didn't have to be the first, but you had to be the one to do it that made everyone else copy. Now, okay, Clarks. I think Clarks in New York was all over the place, but did mad people start wearing Clarks because of Ghost? Okay, one may argue that. I'm going to let that argument stand, in my opinion. RZA's beats changed the ears of producers. I don't know how you could even measure that. To me, RZA's production is so unique that I don't even hear like people be like, that sounds like a RZA beat. I don't hear stuff to me that says it sounds like a RZA beat. I hear stuff to me that sounds like a Preem beat, sounds like something Dr. Dre would do. Sounds like something Marley Marl would do. I never hear RZA's production is too intricate, not intricate, too unique. The sounds that he uses, drum programming, I don't hear it. Cats is trying to sound like Meth. I just don't hear it. I mean, maybe for me, I don't hear it. This is interesting. Chris Morale says, now with the stem separation and vocal isolation sites and software, yeah, I've been messing around with that lately. Are there any songs that you would go back and touch, including any demos and practice sessions? Absolutely. If I could strip down rough vocals or vocals and put other beats under it, which I might do, absolutely I would do that. The stems, the way the stems could separate just the drums, just the music, and just the vocals, is the possibilities are endless. I'm kind of glad we didn't have that back in the day because it made sampling a little more special. Because if you could just remove, there's so many dope samples that had vocals in it that you could not remove. That means you couldn't use the sample. That if you could remove those vocals, it would have been ridiculous. Same with drums. But the fact that you couldn't just pick drums out of any record and you had to really dig and find drums made the art of sampling, and I call it an art for all my beat diggers out there, made the art of sampling really special. John Walker says the Taking Mine, that Making Moves was fire. Yes, Making Moves was part of that practice session that I played. That was a song done by Jesse West, the same guy who did Step Into a World. And that song was supposed to be on a KRS-One album following I Got Next. I think it was called Maximum Strength. And it never came out. But I had the cassette, so I played it on that what you call it, that session, that Frozen Files session. Yeah, Making Moves was fire. CMCs, once again, thank you as usual for your contribution to the channel. I really appreciate it. Says Scarface absolutely gets no respect for his first classic solo album. I respect it to the max. How impactful was his album for the South in your opinion? First of all, that first album, his first solo album was ridiculous. What's the song? Mr. Scarface. Though that record, Flex used to play that all the time in New York. That record was banging. There's a knock on the door. It's Fred. Who the fuck is Fred? I used to laugh at that all the time. I'm not sure if the Ghetto Boys opened up the South. And I've been really thinking about this lately because the South, the emergence of the South is one of those moments that changed hip hop. But I'm trying to figure out, when did that happen? I'm not sure if it was the Ghetto Boys, because when the Ghetto Boys and Scarface dropped in 91, 92, it didn't really open the South. The South was still closed, as to say. When Andre 3000 came at the 95 Source Awards and says, the South got something to say, which was very ballsy on his point, that might have been a turning point, but it wasn't really musically. Outkast was out. Their first album was out because they won an award, but I don't know if that was the moment. There's a moment when the South emerged as a force. Not just one group or two groups, but like they came. And I'm trying to think if it Outkast, and was it like their second or third album? Was it Jermaine Dupri? Was it Ludacris? There's a moment, but I'm not sure. I'm really trying to get to the bottom of this. This is one of my thoughts I was thinking about this week. When did the South emerge for real? And I love Scarface's album, but I don't know if that was the moment. 91, the South was still just Ghetto Boys. That's a very good question. I'm going to say I'm not sure how impactful it was for opening up the South, but it was a great album. A Minute to Pray, A Second to Pray, A Minute to Pray, A Second to Die. One of my all-time favorites, man. Oh, this is very interesting. Mike Rock, DJ KP, thank you for your contribution to the channel. Says DJ KP, did you pay your neighbor a visit after Friday's show? For those that's just that did not catch Friday's show, I was playing beats, and when I played the track that I said Common had liked, there was some banging on my wall from the neighbor next door, and it's audible in the live. We talked about it that Friday. You can hear it clearly. And I said that as soon as I finished the live, I was going next door. And as soon as I got off, I went next door and knocked on their door. And the guy's wife is a couple that lives there, husband and wife. The wife opened the door. I said, "Excuse me, about an hour ago, did you bang on my door?" And she said, "No." She was looking at me like, "No, I don't know what you're talking about." And then the husband came to see what was going on. And I asked again, "Did you guys bang on, not on my door, on the wall about an hour ago?" I said, I was playing some music online. And did you guys bang on my wall? They said no. They was looking at me like they had no idea what I was talking about. Now keep in mind, there's nobody else next door but them. They said it was not them. So now I'm thinking to myself, could it have come from upstairs? But it didn't sound like it. So the answer to your question is I absolutely went next door to get to the bottom of the knocking on my wall. And they said they had no idea what I was talking about. So I apologized for disturbing their evening, and I went back in the house, still tight. But I haven't heard anything else about it. So thank you. You guys check the Friday. If you didn't see Friday, check the rewind and you'll see what I'm talking about. But yes, I did go to see what was up, and either it wasn't them and the knock came from somewhere else, which I can't imagine where it would come from, or they're lying. MK Ultra said, "How did the talk with the neighbor go?" Yes. I don't know how it went. It went weird. Papa Sincere says, "No, it's supposed to be a lottery pick after conveniently letting Luka go to a major market, which benefits the NBA overall." That seemed very suspicious. Benny Diol says, "Yeah, they had a 1.8% chance of winning the lottery, and they won." It's possible that it was just that 1.8 chance, that slim chance happened, but it seems very suspicious. Very suspicious. I agree with that. There, Marasuti said, "The message Grandmaster Flash and the Furious Five changed the game." I think yes and no. It planted the seed for the change that would come 6 years later. I think Grandmaster Flash, The Message, is the most important, greatest rap song of all time, greatest single, most important song of all time. And it came out in, I believe, 82, late 82 or early 83. I think it was late 82. But the conscious rap movement started 6 years later in 88. But that was the seed. There's like 3 seeds. There's like 3 records that I consider seeds. It came out, but the movement took a couple years. That, PSK, for gangster rap, and there's one more I can't remember off the top of my head. But yes, it changed the game, sort of. Corey Flood says, "Kenny, have you seen the King's Son interview on YouTube? He briefly mentions you when he talks about the incident over at the KRS-One article in the Source magazine." No, I did not see that interview. Shout out to King's Son. I did not see that that interview. I have to check that out. But yes, there was a, what's the word I want to use? I don't want to use confrontation. There was a discussion between King's Son and KRS-One over Source magazine article. I've never really got into it here on this channel. Don't know if I'll talk about that. Maybe if I get King's Son on, but that was one of the multitude of beefs and things that happened in 92 that I talk about all the time on this channel. 92 was a very hectic year for BDP. We had beefs coming out the walls. And King's Son was one of those moments. And I was there, sort of, I'll probably get into it another day, but I gotta check and see what King's Son said. Ilroy says Dallas should have kept Brunson and Luka. Absolutely. Matter of fact, people talk about the Luka trade, which I think is the worst trade, is going to end up being the worst trade in the history of the NBA. But the fact that they let Brunson walk, bear in mind, he wasn't the Brunson that we know now in Dallas. He was playing second fiddle to Luka. But when he got on his own, man, Brunson is a top 10 player in the league, maybe a top 8. Dallas did 2 bad moves. That was 2 bad moves in like 3 years. They let 2 franchise players leave, in my opinion. Michael from Marta says he's a good player, but don't let the wind blow or Brunson will flop to the ground. Yeah, the way they draw fouls these days is very interesting. Brunson is a master. SGA is a master. LeBron wants to be, but it doesn't work for him. I think he's too big to get the flop call. Yeah. This is interesting, Terrence Hill says. I meant because of how bad the trade looked for Dallas. They gave Dallas the pick like Stern wasn't going to let Ewing go to the Pacers. That's what I was thinking. Yeah, I was going to bring that up too. I'm glad you mentioned that. The old conspiracy about 1985, the very first draft, and Patrick Ewing goes to the biggest market, a struggling team that needs a star. Patrick Ewing goes to the biggest market. And, you know, David Stern, rest in peace to him, he was a great commissioner for the league, but he always gets very defensive whenever somebody asked him, was that draft lottery rigged? You should see David Stern is a very jovial guy, but his demeanor always changes whenever someone asks him about that. I've only seen David Stern really mad about 2 times. The Malice in the Palace, when he did that press conference and gave the hammer to Ron Artest, he was mad that day. And if you ask him about was the draft rigged for the Knicks, he gets very upset over that. And they say that the way, I forgot who was digging in the barrel, looked like they was looking for something. And some people feel that the Knicks envelope was put in a freezer so it could be colder than the rest of the envelopes. So when you dig in a thing, you're feeling for the coldest envelope and you pull it out. I've heard all kinds of conspiracy theories. That was very convenient for the NBA and the Knicks. Very convenient. Drizzy says, do you think Kenny Dallas always drafting white players? I think you draft, I don't think it's about color, man. You go with the best player available. You go with the absolute best player available. I don't think they'll draft a white player over a better black player just to have somebody white just to lose. This guy Cooper Flagg is probably considered to be a unanimous first pick. Anyone is picking him. I don't know about that. I don't think it's a racial thing. I think it probably just happens to end up like that. Papa Sincere says Knicks was taking that game before Tatum got injured. Absolutely. Knicks were up 7 when that loose ball occurred, and OG stole a ball. I guess Tatum went for the dive. I don't think he would have gotten it, but when he went for the dive, that's when he blew his Achilles. But I think OG goes down, he dunks that. Knicks up 9 with 3 minutes to go, 2 something. The Knicks were in control of that game. Now, Jason Tatum was on fire. Fire. So it still would have been hairy, but I believe that the Knicks had that game under control because Brunson was on fire too. Mike Rock says it's time for the Lakers to blow up their team and start the rebuild process. LA can't do that, man. That place is built for stars and winning now. And when you mean by blow up that team, you're not going to get rid of LeBron unless he wants to leave. Luka is the future. They got a couple of good pieces. I really like Austin Reeves, man. I think he had a disappointing playoffs. And I think he had his moments in the playoffs. When he looked like Austin Reeves, the Lakers looked really good. But that was far and few between. I think he had a difficult playoffs, but I wouldn't give up on him just yet. Everybody else, possibly, yeah. If that's what you mean by blow up, then yeah. Rosmel says, last Friday when I said that Just Blaze was one of the few producers that tagged RZA as his inspiration, I meant that Just Blaze was one of the few producers that admitted that he influenced them. True, there's a lot of people that won't admit that they got inspiration from other people. I could see RZA influencing people. I don't know if he changed the game. Like Marley Marl's introduction of sampling into rap changed the game. I think Pete Rock's use of horns changed the way producers started using horns. That whole wave of jazz, that New York was heavy on the jazz influence sampling. I think Low End Theory, I think Q-Tip's production and Low End Theory really took New York City in a jazz direction for like 5-6 years. That's what I mean by producers that changed the game. Timbaland's drum programming changed the game. There's probably a couple others you could name. Larry Smith, the first great super producer that doesn't get mentioned as much as he should for crafting that early hip hop sound in 83, 84, 85. He changed the game. That's how I look at it, game changing. To me, this is my opinion, y'all. Everybody's welcome to their opinions. On the Kenny Parker Show, we respect all opinions. Midwest says very few artists actually changed the game. That's my argument. Very few artists changed the game or had very few albums. That's why I hold game-changing albums a little bit in higher regard. There's very few artists that actually changed the game. Many artists were great for them. MMA, what up? Dan Marasuti says De La Soul's first album premiered skits. After that, every album was trying to add 3 skits. Yeah, every single album after 3 Feet High and Rising was skits up until today. That's just one of the things that they changed. But I'm going to get into that a little later. Sweet Goldilocks was good. Am I falling behind? I think I am. Let me scroll down. Green Lion says 93 was beautiful. I always say on this channel, I get some pushback on this. The greatest single year of hip hop, the greatest 12 months of hip hop history was from like the middle. It's more like 14 months, but it was 92 into 93. So it's like 92 into the fall of 93. So let's say summer of 92 to like fall of 93 is the greatest single moment where hip hop was at its absolute creative peak to me. And we've talked about this on this channel before. I'm just going to say it real quick. The reason why I say that is because that was the moment where the best of the 80s rappers was still dope in 92, 93, was still putting out great music. And there was a wave of new rappers too that were coming in, and they all were dope at the same time. You had to be absolutely incredible to be heard in 92, 93. You got to imagine in 92, 93, Rakim was still dope. Ice Cube was still dope. These guys from the 80s. G-Rap was still dope. LL was still dope. KRS was still dope. Public Enemy, Shut 'Em Down and all that was still out. I'm probably missing a few. Run DMC had Down with the Kings. They went platinum. Salt and Pepper was still rocking. I'm probably missing a few, but you had like 8 to 10 80s groups who were huge in the 80s. EPMD, that was still dope in 92, 93. Then you had the people that was out then, like Naughty and Tribe and De La and Brand Nubian and Cypress Hill and all of these groups that were going platinum at that time. Snoop, The Chronic, all of that stuff was going platinum at that time. And then you had the Puppies coming up, the Puppies, Tupac, Jay-Z, Biggie, Nas, Wu-Tang, Black Moon, Hieroglyphics. Those were puppies in 92, 93. They were coming. So it was just a ridiculous time. Too Short from the 80s was still dope in 92. Scarface, like that moment, 92, 93, them 14 months to me was the greatest time ever, collectively. The merger, that's when MCs was at their peak, in my opinion. If you was dope then, Busta was a baby. If you was dope then, you was really dope to me. Paul Lepe says, KP, that had to be 100 heads is fire. Where can I find copies of that 12-inch? There was promo only. We just made it as a promo because we were working on another album for MCA that ended up not coming out. And that was a promo song that we just threw out there. So there wasn't even that many copies of it. I just gave Large Professor a copy of that record. I had a few of them laying around, and I gave Large Professor a copy, but I don't believe there's hardly any of those left. And we performed, Heather performed that on Rap City. There's a Rap City episode with me DJing, Joe Claire, shout out Joe Cleasy, and Heather B was in the booth, and she performed that song. And she freestyled with Joe Claire. But yeah, that song was never available. I might have like 1 or 2 copies left. Bill Shapiro says BDP was the first supergroup to me. Honestly, I don't even consider BDP a supergroup. I consider BDP KRS One and Friends. 99% of all of the vocals on BDP albums is him. He wrote all of it. He produced and co-produced all of the songs. Everything had to go through him. When Scott was alive, he was the leader of the group. They were 50-50, but Scott was the real leader of the group. When Scott passed, Anything after Criminal Minded is all KRS. Even Criminal Minded is 100% of the, not 100%, because Scott did some shout outs. 99.9% of the vocals are his. I mean, who else was in the group? I mean, D Nice was dope. D Nice was a dope MC and a dope producer, and now he's an incredible, the biggest DJ in the world. If you want to throw him in there, at the time, he was dope. Everybody else had like a moment. Jamal Ski was in there for a second. Heather was there for a second. Mad Lion. Yeah, and that's later on. That's BDP Crew, which is different than Boogie Down Productions. Channel Live. Shout out to Hakeem and Tuffy. People had moments, but to me, the supergroup was like NWA. PE kind of, because Chuck was great, and the Bomb Squad, which is kind of there, was PE was great, and Flavor was a superstar. Terminator X. There was no one else on KRS-One's level in BDP to me. Not even close. There's no one else. And if you was around the group or in the group around it, there's nothing that was done without his say-so. Like, nothing. I couldn't, even me, like, I'm always coming with suggestions and things to Chris. I would get, of every 10 things that I brought to him, maybe he'll agree on one. 1 out of 10, he'll be like, okay, yeah, that's cool. Let's do that. The other 9, I'll get shot down. But I just keep coming with ideas because it's all good. I just keep coming with ideas and keep coming with ideas, and he might entertain a couple and then go, nah. But every once in a while, he'll listen to something that I come up with. He'll think is a good idea. But everything revolved around him, so I don't really consider BDP a supergroup. To me, it was more like a, I'm not going to say a dictatorship. It was more like a prime minister with other factions, but the prime minister has the ultimate say. That was very long-winded. Now I'm way behind. All right, I'm just going to scroll down. I'm just going to jump in right here. Rod Justice says, Kenny pumped his neighbor. Shame on you, KP. I mean, for those that did not see the episode, go back Friday's live, the live before this, and check out the part where I'm playing Common's beat and listen to how it all went down. It was very, okay, maybe if my music was too loud, okay, maybe, but it was 8 o'clock on a Friday. You know, in this complex that I live in, they try to have like quiet hours, they call it, which is like from 10 p.m. to like 7 a.m. or 6. They try to say, please be mindful of noise or whatever, which is cool. I respect that. But it was 8 p.m. on a Friday. It was 8:15 on a Friday. Come on, man. But when I went and knocked on the door, it was something else. So I don't know. I'm going to leave it at that. Patrick Wise says, once a 6'6" black man showed up at the door, the answer will be no. Yeah. Maybe. Benny Doyle said they're lying. For those that were watching the Friday Live, man, you tell me what you saw. Let's see. I'm trying to catch up. I'm trying to see if there's some. Cool Kev says, Kenny is a big dude. I was scared when I saw him at Beach Street in downtown Brooklyn back in '93. I was in high school. What up? Big up. Yeah, I used to be in Beach Street all the time, downtown Brooklyn. I believe it's Fulton Street. I saw Biggie over there one day. Down the block from Beach Street was a store called Dr. J's. They had them in all the boroughs where you could buy a bunch of clothes. I remember when Biggie had before his album drops, I guess Dreams was out. And I saw Biggie coming out of Dr. J's. You know, Biggie lived on Fulton Street. Biggie lived about a mile up the road. So that's just like a 15, 20-minute walk down for Big. And I saw Big coming out of Dr. J's with a bag with Tim, like 2 bags of Timberlands. We stopped and kicked it for a minute, and then he kept it moving. But yeah, I used to be in downtown Brooklyn. Maybe I looked a little intimidating, possibly knocking on their door. Rosmel says, Kenny, I can tell you 100 ways how Wu-Tang changed the game. They were the first grimy lyricists to cross over while staying authentic. First of all, what do you mean by crossover? I don't think the Wu-Tang what crossed over? The only Wu-Tang record to me that crossed over was Method Man and Mary. You're All I Need was a crossover smash. Wu-Tang Clan, that Wu-Tang Clan first album went gold. It took months to go gold. And it probably took like a year and some change to go platinum. I don't consider that Wu-Tang album a crossover by any means. I mean, if you want to say the first grimy lyricist to cross over, I think Onyx was the first grimy lyricist to cross over. Slam was a big platinum single MTV jam, and Onyx was super grimy. Shout out to Big DS from Onyx too. Rest in peace to him. People don't really mention him that much. And shout out to Sha Skills. Rest in peace to him too. First grimy crossover. I don't think they were. I don't see Wu-Tang as crossover. What Wu-Tang songs crossed over? They have big records in the R&B hip hop world, but I don't see them as crossover. Not Onyx. He says, no one has ever done that at a level that the Wu did then. Platinum. Wu-Tang was mad grimy. And if you look at it on a grimy level, possibly, I don't know. On grimy, I guess we're talking about imagery. Are we talking about lyrics? Possibly on that level, platinum, a real underground album going platinum. I'll just say Onyx was the first, but I would say Wu-Tang was bigger than Onyx. Eventually. I don't know if that changed the game, because for me to say it changed the game would be like Wu-Tang was underground, right? They came out with the underground sound. They blew up and crossed over. And then after that, mad underground groups was crossing over, and they were sounding like Wu, and they were crossing over, and radio was like, okay, we're down for the underground. None of that happened. Wu-Tang crossed over. Even after that, Nas, Illmatic was mad grimy. It took Nas a year to go platinum. Nas' first album didn't even go platinum until the second one dropped. Then the first one went platinum. I don't see where a bunch of underground, if we're gonna call Wu-Tang Clan underground or grimy, I don't see where after they dropped, they marched in a bunch of grimy people behind them. Like they opened the door and grimy came in. I don't see it like that. Because a little while after Wu-Tang, Bad Boy took over, and the grimy was done. I mean, I just personally don't see it like that. John O says, KP, what's your opinion on truck rattling bass beats, aka DJ Magic Mike, etc.? I have no comment on that. I've barely ever been to Florida. That Miami bass sound, I have no idea about it. I know 2 Live Crew and a couple guys, but I can't even comment on that. That is so far from. I'm a New York-based person. That sound was so far away from me. I heard of DJ Magic Mike. I couldn't tell you one song that he sings. So I can't even comment. I'm gonna leave that one alone because I'm man enough to say I have no idea what I'm talking about. MK Ultra, do you think Heavy D changed the game? No. D Nizzy says Sucker MCs was a game changer. Now we're talking. That song absolutely was a seismic earthquake level shift in rap music when that record dropped. Hip hop and the world was not ready for Run DMC when they came with that record. That's what I'm talking about, a game changer. Before and after. Def Rocker says the Message was the first to speak on social aspect. Yes, they were. And not only were they the first, but they did it in a way that it's still relevant. You put the Message on right now, it could have came out today and sounded exactly the same. There's a lot of controversy behind that record, though. You know, we had a lot of talk on this channel for those that hasn't been here for, we're 2 years in to doing lives. We're not 2 years in lives. This is episode number 96. So we're almost at 2 years. And I've talked a lot about ghost writing. We talked about ghost writing on this channel, and I argue that ghost producing was even more rampant than ghost writing. And that Message song is heaped in controversy. Let me just say that. For those that don't know what I'm talking about, look up the name Duke Booty. There's a guy named Duke Booty. Look up his name associated with that song. But nonetheless, I still consider whoever did that song to be the greatest song ever made. Dave Philly says 100 heads was fired. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. King Sun was influenced by P2, had that album. He had a lot of conscious and thoughtful stuff on there. It Takes a Nation of Millions changed the game. That's a game changer to me. Patrick Wise says Dallas didn't want to pay Brunson $25 million a year. That looks like a bargain now. Absolutely. Absolutely. They didn't want to pay. They didn't want to pay Luka. That's why they traded him. They don't want to pay. They didn't want to pay Luka. They didn't want to pay Brunson. And if those two guys stay healthy, they will be all-time greats on a franchises with multiple all-time greats. They will be one of the people whose names will go up in the rafters if they stay healthy. And the Dallas didn't want to pay either one of them. Benny Doyle Brothers shout out. Big up to Doyle Brothers. G Doyle is working tonight, Kenny, but he says, what's up? What up, G Doyle? Big up to G Doyle Brothers. Big up to Doyle Brothers. Big up all the regulars who check in For those that's new to the channel, we do this every Tuesday, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And we're starting to incorporate some Fridays. It's getting a little warm, so I'm going to see how Fridays work out. But I'm starting incorporating some Fridays. But yeah, thank you. Jack Swagger says, my Mind Playing Tricks on Me was the biggest South song to me. That was a huge record. That was an absolutely amazing record. Biggest South song, maybe of the 90s. Outkast had some big songs, some dope albums in the 90s. I don't know if they had a single song as big as Mind Playing Tricks on Me. I can't even think of anybody else who had a song that big. That was probably the song of the year of 91. The Source gave it song of the year. Def Rocker says, I would not be surprised if Kyrie left Dallas. Me neither. Kyrie has a history of leaving, so let's see. Benny Doyle says, didn't Stern lose his shit in Barclay on Barclay and Mark Jackson over false gambling allegations? Well, I didn't see that. But yeah, but he probably did. But I'm saying the two times that I seen him the maddest was the Malice and the Palace. Go back and look at that interview when he says Ron Artest is suspended indefinitely, and Steven Jackson, I think he gave him like 30 games or 50 games or something like that. Look at his face in that press conference. Oh, my goodness. Mike Rock says, there was a big disappointment when they drafted Ewing because the Knicks let Bernard King go. Imagine a Knicks team that had Ewing and Bernard King. And they let Bernard King go for peanuts. And I personally put that blame on Rick Pitino. He wanted a new running gun pressing style, and he didn't feel like Bernard King, who was coming off an injury, but he didn't feel like Bernard King matched the style that he was going for. They let Bernard King go for almost nothing, man. And he ended up coming back and being an all-star once again. I remember he came to the Garden and dropped 49 on the Knicks. Let me start. Reminiscing. Let's see. Am I still far behind? Yeah. I'm going to read some of these comments right here, and I'm going to move on. Because I'll be falling mad behind it, and I'll be seeing comments. It'd be like from 15 minutes ago. I appreciate all of you guys for giving comments too, by the way. I go back and I'll look at them later on. Patrick Wise says Primo and Q-Tip and a small extent Extra P had the jazz influence beats. Yeah. I mean, Preem sort of. I mean, people was starting to do jazz 91, 90, 91, but when Low End Theory dropped, it was like, okay, this is where all the producers was digging the jazz crates after that. D. Nizzy says Larry Smith left the game because he didn't want to sample. Really? I did not know that. I thought Larry Smith kind of died down around 84, 85, a little bit before sampling, but maybe. He was incredible, man. MMA says Dr. J changed the game. Now that's a game changer. Shout out to the Dr. Julius Irving. MMA says 93 was an amazing year indeed. Agreed, yeah. 93, but it was started in 92 and then 93. That was what a time to be alive. Corey Fuss says Redman has the best skits. I didn't even mention Redman in 92. Just coming, the Hit Squad was killing it. Das Effects, K Solo, Redman. Just Just ridiculous, man. CMC says 93 was unmatched. It was. Charles 13X says 80s rappers was 83 to 85. Really? I mean, Rakim, Kane, KRS, they all dropped in like 86, 87. To me, those are 80s rappers. EPMD dropped in 88. Fresh Prince, I consider 88 80s. And Fresh Prince was still dope in 91, 92. Had probably his biggest record. Not his biggest record, Summertime. His biggest records his parents just don't understand, but Summertime was big too. Actually, Getting Jiggy with It was big too. BL Valentine, this is interesting. Did 3 Feet High change the game because of what they sampled or because of sampling in general? I say what they sampled and how they sampled it. I'd argue that Bomb Squad was the first with a barrage of samples on Nation and American Most. Yes. First of all, when we talk about America's Most, Bomb Squad only did half that album. And the biggest records on that album were done by Sir Jinx. I want to give Sir Jinx some credit right now. He doesn't get the credit he deserves for his production with Ice Cube. The biggest Ice Cube records of that era were done by Sir Jinx, in my opinion. I'm a huge Ice Cube fan. He's in my top 5 all-time favorites. The difference between the Bomb Squad, to me, and De La's production is that the Bomb Squad, they used a lot of samples, but they still were sampling what everybody else was sampling. They used a lot of James Brown. They was heavy on James Brown. They used a lot of the classic break beats that everybody was using, Substitution, Funky Drummer a lot. They used funk samples. They was rocking the samples that we all were rocking in 88, 89. A lot of James Brown, a lot of funk. EPMD was heavy on the funk, but a lot of Parliament, and we were all looking for those kind of records. And De La came out with, they were like, we're not sampling what everyone else is sampling. We're going somewhere else with it. We're taking jazz. We're taking 60s psychedelic records. We're taking foreign language records and yacht rock records and all kinds. They went somewhere else. They took the rap game and said, okay, let's expand our palette of what the sound could be. And they did it masterfully. Then after that, mad different sounds started coming. Charles 13X says Rakim was a puppy. Rakim wasn't a puppy in 92, 93. By 93, Rakim was already iconic. Death Rocker Kane was still hitting. Yeah. Do you think Shock G and Digital Underground changed the game? No, but they were great. I don't know if they changed the game. They were the first, I believe, to use the Sly and the Family Stone drums, which everybody started using after that. I wouldn't say they changed the game, but they were great. Shout out to Shock G, DJ Fuse, Money B, the whole squad. Let's see. DJ J Nice says, peace, KP. I want to say, y'all, LP, Criminal Minded changed the game, especially for MCs where you just couldn't say anything, think nobody would respond. Kind of so, yes. Criminal Minded changed the game a few ways. One of those moments. MK Ultra said, did you get to the bottom of the recent German Heather B. vinyl release? Yes, I talked about that on the channel Friday. Some German company is putting out Heather B's album Taking Mine and has not contacted me at all. And I spoke to Heather B yesterday about it, and we're working on it. Matt says NWA was the first supergroup. To me, they were. Terrence Hill says KRS-One and Friends. Yeah. To me, you couldn't even be in BDP unless KRS-One says you could be in BDP. I could have brought somebody and say, yeah, you in BDP now. That would have went about as far as oh man. Mike Rocket says Juice Crew was a super group. I think Juice Crew was a super crew. Those are individual groups that were part under Marley Marl and Mr. Magic. Biz was his own crew. Kane was his own group, own albums. G-Rap was his own artist. Shan was his own artist. I think they were a crew. Wu-Tang to me is a super group. Stetsasonic was more of a super group. Though they were a group, I don't know if they were a super group because Daddy O was the main MC and other guys rapped, but to me they were like more of a group. To me, a super group is not only are they dope as a group, but individual members have their own careers and have hits and is a star in their own right, like NWA. Stetsasonic was just a dope group to me, but like Fuquan or Delight never went off and did like something else and it was big. NWA, not only were they great, but then Ice Cube went on and to me had a hip-hop Hall of Fame career as a solo artist. Dr. Dre had a rock and roll Hall of Fame career as a solo artist. Ren put out an EP that went platinum. Easy has multiple platinum albums. That's a super group. And Wu-Tang. I don't even know. I'm trying to think if there's another group that you could even call a super group other than NWA and Wu-Tang. I have to think about that. Jamil says, is KRS going to release a project for Hip Hop Appreciation Week? I'm not sure. He's on tour right now. First super group. What about Cold Crush and the Fantastic Romantics? I consider all of those groups. I consider all of those just groups. Not just, but groups. Charles 13X says Public Enemy was the first super group. That's not up for discussion. Chuck, first of all, Flavor Flav was so hot. Flavor Flav was actually a bigger star than Chuck, to me. Even though Chuck did all of the rhymes, Flav was just as big or bigger than Chuck. But now, did Flav ever do anything on his own? Not really. Terminator X had an album. I consider that, I would say they were borderline supergroup because their members were so popular. But to me, by my definition of a supergroup, not really. To me, they were just a great group. Maybe the greatest, not the greatest. Run DMC is the greatest. Maybe the second greatest group ever. Or NWA or Wu-Tang. To me, I always keep saying to me because this is just my opinion. Other people have their opinions, and I respect everyone's opinion. Mike Rock says, I think we should consider the Furious Five a supergroup. I don't. There were 5 guys in the group. They were great as a group. No Jay-Z in 92. Jay-Z, I said 92 into 9. I meant 92 into 93 because first of all, Jay-Z was around. He was rolling with Kane. First, he did the record with Jaz-O. I'm not going to count that because that wasn't really like Jay-Z. But when he was rolling with Kane, we used to see him all the time in New York. He was around. He just wasn't out yet. And then he did the original flavor, Can I Get Open? What was that, 93, 94? So he might have been a little, his recording, he recorded in 89. And I can't remember when original flavor dropped. That might have been right outside of my 92, 93 guidelines. But Hov was around. Hov was around. He was in all the clubs. I used to see Jay-Z with Kane all the time. We did a show with Jay-Z as an opener in like 93 maybe, or 92. No, that was like 94. I can't remember. I think I told this story about Jay-Z and I saw him. I have a whole story about when I first met Jay-Z on this channel. A lot of people never even watched it. I did it over 2 years ago. It's called, Did I Give Jay-Z Bad Advice? I did a whole thing about the first time I ever met Jay-Z. I gave him advice. I hope most of you guys have seen it. I know you guys have seen it, my regulars. NPC says KRS was bad enough with his Jamaican accent, but Mad Lion and Jamal Ski were awful. Alrighty then. Let's see. Ilroy says, I always laugh when you talk about everything going through KR. My little bro would say the same thing about me. Yeah. Yeah, everything was, yeah. As a younger brother, I probably feel, maybe I have a younger brother complex. But no, in BDP, everything goes through Chris. GF says next week's guest, Keddy's neighbor. That would be hilarious. Let me scroll down a little bit because I'm behind. I'm going to go all the way down. I just jumped 50 comments. Let's see. Luke Rocket was crazy huge from the South. You mean not Doodoo Brown? Are you talking about that? Was Doodoo Brown? That's not the name of the record. Is it called I Wanna Rock? Used to demolish the tunnel in New York City. There was like a moment, like you be playing mostly East Coast bangers in the tunnel. You played Mobb Deep and Bad Boy Biggie and whatever was hot. Jay-Z, Nas, all those records was big, and then there'd be a moment of the night when you just hear "Don't Stop," and the Doodoo Brown, and Flex will throw on Doodoo Brown, and dudes would lose, girls and guys. It was like being in a porn for like 4 minutes. Dudes just picking girls up, throwing them in the air, hugging on them, jumping on. I couldn't imagine being a girl in the tunnel when Doodoo Brown came on. I couldn't even imagine. By today's standards, there'd be all kind of charges. That was a huge record in New York. And that was big in the tunnel for like 2-3 years. Doodoo Brown was the record. Big up to Luke. Let's see. People talking about Bernard King on here, who is my favorite basketball player of all time. says 50-point Christmas gift from the king. I was listening to that game on the radio because I did not have cable in the Christmas of '84. I was in my college dorm room on Christmas night day listening to the game on the radio. Shout out to Marv Albert. He used to do radio back then. And I listened to Bernard King score 50 points. Losing my mind listening to the radio. Have any of you guys ever listened to a sporting event on the radio? Do people even remember any of that? Brand Yakubian says, Low End Theory blew up Blue Note Records. Yes, it did. All of them Grant Green type artists and Lou Donaldson, them records was like $2. And all of a sudden, after Low End Theory, them records was like $30 and $40, man. Rod Justice says, I was sampling jazz in the early to mid 80s, and my brother used to laugh at me. Yeah, in the 80s, that would have sounded crazy. I mean, Fresh Prince, Jazzy Jeff had Talking All That Jazz. That was in 85, I believe. When did that album drop? 85, 86. And Stetsasonic had Talking All That Jazz. They was dissing people. They said they was talking about Mtume, the great Mtume producer. They was talking about him when they was talking about artists complaining about rappers sampling. And this was in 88. They had Talking All That Jazz. There's a couple people that touched on jazz, but it wasn't the move like James Brown was the move, and Parliament and Zap. And then Low End Theory was like, whew. Just Mo says Wilt Chamberlain changed the game. Absolutely. They had to change the rules for Wilt Chamberlain. Let's see. Somebody, Rich said Redhead Kingpin. Shout out to the Redhead Kingpin. I mentioned this before. We did some shows with the Redhead Kingpin. He was mad cool. I haven't seen him since 1988, but Patrick Wise says there will be another MJ before you see another Muggsy Bogues 5'3". He's even short for the WNBA. You're right. I never even thought about that. That's a great comment. We are probably likely to see another player who you could compare to Jordan than you will to see a 5'3" player play. What he played, like 10, 12 years in the league? I have a friend who played against Muggsy in college. And he was like, when you played Wake Forest, the point guard wouldn't even bring the ball up. Like whoever Muggsy is holding, you're not even going to dribble. Give the ball to the other guards or the forward and let them bring it up because Muggsy is so short and on you that he would take the ball. So whoever Muggsy was guarding would not even bring the ball up in college. And he was mad strong. You're right. We will probably see another Jordan before we see another Muggsy. He should be in the Hall of Fame because of what he did for his size. Absolutely. E. Stone says, your brother KRS-One took a photo with me and my daughter out here in LA. He knows me in passing. I wish he was able to make a hip-hop temple in Los Angeles. That would be real dope. That would be real dope. Maybe one day. Terrence Hill says, Nas helped Will write Jiggy with it. I kind of heard that. I forgot about that. That's right. Sir Jinx is bananas. Yes, he is, man. And he doesn't get, when people talk about America's Most Wanted, they're just like the bomb squad. Go back and look at the credits of America's Most Wanted. Look at the credits and then pick out what's your favorite songs and what you think are like the most classic songs on that album, and look who produced them. Hold on. MK Ultra, thank you so much for your contribution to the channel. He says, I have too much to say on how the Wu changed the game, but too much to say in chat form. We need a DJ KP show live phone line. That would be dope if I could figure out how to do it. I would love that debate on how Wu changed the game. And I'll admit if I'm wrong. I mean, if I feel like I'm wrong, somebody can convince me that Wu-Tang Clan changed the rap game. I will admit I'm wrong, but in my opinion, no. Terrell McMillan, once again, thank you for your contribution to the channel. It's much appreciated. Says girls versus boys. Pebbly Pooh diss Boogie Boys. Fly Guy, Roxanne, Shantae diss UTFO. Roxanne's Revenge, Salt and Pepper diss Dougie Fresh and Slick. Which was like, yeah, that used to be the thing in the early 80s, the answer records. And some people say, I had mentioned on this channel that The Bridge Is Over changed the game. And before The Bridge Is Over, rap battles were predominantly live, face to face, like the Kumo D versus Busy B battle, or like 8 Mile. That would be, if two people battled, it would have been like that. But after The Bridge Is Over, everything from that point on became battling on wax. You make your record, I make my record. And if it's a tie, I make another record, you make another record. That all comes from The Bridge Is Over. That record changed the game. Now, some people was like, well, Roxanne and UTFO, that was a battle. I'm like, that wasn't a battle. That was answer records. That was girls used to answer guy records and make their own records to answer. UTFO never responded to Roxanne, and Slick Rick and Dougie Fresh never responded to Salt and Pepper. They made spin-off records. Somebody said that the first battle was really Sugar Hill versus Grandmaster Flash on Record Showdown. That wasn't a battle. First of all, that was label mates made records together. Sylvia Robinson wanted them to make a record together and call it a battle, so they called it Showdown. And I got from a very reliable source. Actually, I got it from Master G this is Master G from Sugar Hill Gang. Shout out to him. Told me that day that because I picked his brain for like an hour. I was on top of Master G. I was fanning out. I know I was a bit too much for him, but I couldn't take it. He told me that when they did Showdown, they didn't even know it was going to be a battle type record. They said Sugar Hill came in there and laid down their verses like it was a regular song. And then he said the Furious Five came in there and they didn't really know each other at that point. And he said the Furious Five came in there all screwface. And he said the Furious Five then laid down their verses after Sugar Hill, and they was dissing. And Sugar Hill was like, wait a minute, this sounds very aggressive. That's not really what we came here for. We came here to make a record with them. We thought it was going to be all good. We laid down our parts, and then they came after on more aggressive. So he says that's why it sounds like Furious Five is more aggressive than Sugar Hill, because they had no idea. And Sylvia Robinson would not let them go back in the studio and change their lyrics. So I don't consider Showdown a battle record. I consider that label mates making a record and they gassing it up like it was a battle record. Shan versus KRS, BDP versus Shan, that was a battle to me. Thank you so much for that comment. And we're past an hour and a half, y'all. I'm gonna do a couple more. I'm gonna jump off. E Stone, thank you so much for your contribution to the channel. Says, how can I get you a custom hip hop shirt I made? It's dope. Rakim loved it. I gave him one several years ago, and he gave a free concert when he gave a free concert in California. Can you DM me on Instagram. DJ Kenny Parker on Instagram. If you DM me, because I don't know how to do it here on YouTube. I don't know how you could send me a message. There's something here that says private chat that I never clicked on before, so I'm not going to do it now, but I'm going to learn how to work that. I can see it. There's a button that says private chat on this algorithm here. If you DM me on Instagram, I will send you an address to send a shirt. I would love that. That would be dope, and I will rock it. Make it big, make it like a 2X, and I'll rock it on this channel. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. I will rock that shirt. Let's see. I'm at the very bottom. I'm at the very bottom. All right. NPC says Sham bodied KRS with Juice Crew lore. Chris had no answer to that. April 7th says, from what I've seen in many interviews from Queens artists, KRS shut down the whole borough of Queens for a minute with The Bridge Is Over. Yeah. That was one of the most impactful records ever. And that's why I call that a game-changing moment. On that note, we're going to jump off. This is the DJ Kenny Parker Show. We do this every Tuesday, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And I'm going to put probably, going to jump on Friday at 8 o'clock if you guys want to hang out. And I will, we can have some fun. I may have a guest. I'm really working on this special guest, y'all. He already confirmed to be on the show. We just got to get it date down, and we're going to really get more in depth with this game-changing thing. That's the only hint I'm going to say. But this is going to be good. This is going to be a good one. Maybe this Friday or maybe next Tuesday. I'm going to really try to lock it in. He already agreed to do it, so let's go. All right. I am jumping off, and I will catch you guys next week. No, I'll catch you guys on Friday. All right. I'm out. Peace.